Welcome to another session of the Business Renovator. I'm your host, Coach Phil, or AKA Phil Chilks, as it shows on the screen there. What I'd like to do before I get jumping into the meat of today's live stream is to share a quote actually from a buddy of mine. Just bear with me for a minute while I bring this up. And it's out of this book, Customer Delight 365, written by Brian Monahan. Brian Monahan and I are members of a Megamind, which is a different way to have a mastermind group leveraging technology, live streaming, and videos to be more effective in our professional lives, sales lives, and personal lives. So today, Brian puts a quote in the book for October. We have entered the era of the customer. Today, providing customers with outstanding customer service is essential to building loyal customers and a long-lasting brand. That's by Jerry Grigori. Hopefully I didn't screw his last name up too badly. Brian's take on that, though, is what is an era anyway? It's a period of common belief or interest. Eras don't need to be worldly eras. They can be also applied to smaller groups or of individuals. What era are your customers experiencing? I have a feeling that after reading this book, a lot more companies will enter the customer delight era. And we're not talking error, we're talking a period of time, error. They sound similar, don't they, in my accent? E-R-A, error. So what I wanted to do now is jump into personal success. And a lot of this stuff comes from my 30 some odd years, almost 40 years of this self-development journey that I've been on. But for the most part, much of what I'm going to talk about today and subsequent days comes from this book here, Perform at Your Best. It's a Brian Tracy offering. It's actually a program that I facilitate and help other coaches and facilitators become certified in. There's 21 great sessions in this. And for this week, I'm going to bring out a few nuggets that make sense to me that I hope will have meaningful and massive value for you. So today, what I wanted to talk about is, let me just share the screen of this pie chart that I've created for this purpose. And I'm just going to share my screen and bring it up. So this pie is cut into three segments. The meat of the pie are these three elements: self-ideal, self-image, and self-esteem. The overall concept could arguably be called self-concept or self-efficacy. I like to use both of them, actually, and I'll explain why as we go through today's session. Self-image is how we actually see ourselves. It's how we imagine ourselves to be, how we feel, how we look, how we perceive ourselves. The other's self-ideal is the person you most admire, the person you want to be. So what would your ideal future self look like? That's something that you can grow into, that you're not there yet, but it creates the cognitive dissonance, or in plain English, stress. It's a positive stress, that if you can create that between where you are now and where you'd like to be. So self-image is how you see yourself now. Self-ideal is where you'd like to be. And self-esteem is how you feel about yourself around all of that stuff. That's the most important of the three, actually, self-esteem. But altogether, those three create what we call self-concept. So if you have a high self-concept, you're more likely to do things that are out of your comfort zone. You're likely to be a higher achiever. You're more likely to get more stuff done. If you add the self-efficacy part to it and increase your efficacy, then you definitely will be able to make more stuff happen. In plain English, self-efficacy is really your ability to cause things to happen. Or it's been just labeled by some people as your causative power. So your causative power is really about what can you make happen. And to increase your self-efficacy, you need a high self-image and high self-esteem. with a crystal clear image of yourself at your future best, which is your self-ideal. Self-concept wrapped around with self-efficacy, and inside of the pie are self-ideal, self-esteem, and self-image. So to help you increase your self-efficacy, one of the things that I share with all of my clients and some of my friends, actually many of my friends, and that is to get you to create a success list, things that you've done over your life that maybe you've forgotten about or haven't thought back on much because you're too busy living your life. And living your life is what you should be doing, not living in your past. But in this case, this is an exercise that impacted me in many, many, many ways. The first time it impacted me was when I moved from one city to another. I'd taken a transfer with the company that I was with, and I was living in a strange city. I'd been to the city before. What I mean by strange was the way it was laid out. It wasn't in quadrants. The streets were labeled differently. They didn't have mountains to the west, and there was no family there. So there's a lot of different things there. So I was excited about the new opportunity, but I was also not real comfortable in the city itself in terms of my understanding and awareness of how it worked and how it was laid out. And one of the things that I did was there was one weekend when I was really having a low spot, and I was thinking, I'll resign and go back to where I came from and find some other opportunity. But another voice in my head said, you know what, you're not a quitter. You're not going to put your tail between your legs and go away. Have you given this your best shot? So I thought, well, no, maybe I haven't given it my best shot. So what I ended up doing was that particular weekend was spending time reflecting on me and my past. And I created 100 success lists. From the time I was born to that stage of my life, I listed everything, big and small. I recalled them all. And what I found was as a result of that process, my self-efficacy took a major jump. But I didn't really see the jump or hear about the jump until the following afternoon. So this was a Sunday when I got it all wrapped up, and I went through the self-guided study program was on cassette that I was going through, and one of the exercises was to do this. And I didn't totally understand exactly why to do it. I had a fuzzy understanding. And so I thought, well, I need to do something. I want to do something to change my situation and change my mental state. And my role with the company was to run the meeting for our company within the client's organization. So we were a technology company, and this was a municipality that I was working in. So they had their whole IT department there, all of the heads of their department. And we had a meeting about technology, software, implementing things, futures, possible solutions, things that need to get fixed. And I chaired the meeting, which is something I was to do every Monday morning at their facility. And the feedback I got after lunch when I got back into our office is that many of the people that are on my team or on my team at the time were saying they'd heard this was the best meeting that they've had in quite some time, in years probably. And my team members are telling me that. The city that I was working at as an account manager were giving them that kind of feedback because they were working in the city all the time because they're hands-on. And my team members said that they found that was one of the best meetings ever. So that proved to me that if you take the time to build the 100 success list, to wallow in your successes, not to be braggadocious and tell the world about it, but to take on the things that you've done in your past and recall what you've done. And I challenge anybody that's listening here today, this evening, this afternoon, tonight, or some other time, is to make a list of your 100 successes with the intention of increasing your self-efficacy and your self-concept. And if your self-concept and self-efficacy are increased, that means you've got a clear idea of where you want to get to. You've got a really good understanding of who you are. You're feeling better about yourself, and your self-esteem is on fire. When those things happen, when you make them happen, when you take control of yourself, your thoughts, you can move towards bigger aspirations that maybe you hadn't only dared to dream about. You can turn your dreams into reality. I started a business with no, air quotes, typical finance and the non-traditional way of starting a business. That's a story for another day. The 100 success list, which I continue to do and add on to mine on a weekly, sometimes often daily, I find that it just reminds me of the things that I've brought to the table, the things that I've made different in my life and in the lives of those I serve and I work with. So that's the big nugget out of today in terms of this particular section. This section in the Perform at Your Best training is called the Key to Peak Performance, and that's really what I'm talking about. This is the foundational keys for you and I to move forward, to live the life that we prefer to live instead of living the life that somebody else had planned for us. Jim Rohn, who sends us across to the other side, he says, if you don't have a plan, you'll be working for somebody who has a plan, and what they have planned for you is not too much, generally speaking. So if you want to have more abundance, more experiences, a more vital life, you might want to take a look at where you're at in terms of this pie chart and where you're at in terms of your efficacy. And if you would like to increase it, do the 100 success list. There's another exercise that makes it even better and shorter and easier to make sure that you can do the flicking back and the flicking up. I may get to that this week in one of my sessions here, but if I don't, if that appeals to you, just shoot me an email. Let me stop sharing the screen for a minute. Shoot me an email to phil@coachphil.ca and just mention in there on the subject line 100 success list, and I'll shoot you some information on. Actually, I wrote an article for a newsletter about half a dozen years ago, but it's still applicable today. If you'd like a copy of that and how to leverage the 100 success list tactic for you, put it in an email, send it to me, and just put in the 100 success list in the subject matter. There's a number of other things that if we were taking the course, we could dive into, but we're not taking the course. I just wanted to give you a 35,000 foot view on it. So over the next couple of days, we'll be jumping into a few more modules or sessions out of this one. And the next one I'll be jumping into is actually taking charge of your life. And I'll introduce the valley of excuses and the chasm. When I took the Phoenix seminar back in the early 80s, it was life-changing for me to understand what this really means. Think about, you can make a response and you're an able-bodied person. And how does that tie into your life today and moving yourself forward? So stay tuned. Next session will be on taking charge of your life. I will do a deeper dive into that. And I will leave you with an affirmation, which is, I am completely self-determined and I allow others the same right. Hope you had a great time listening to some of these things. Hope they shift you in your thinking a little bit, just like a kaleidoscope. And again, if you ever have any questions about business, sales, marketing, or mindset, shoot me a email to phil@coachphil.ca and happy to respond to your email. Have a magnificent day.